Abandonment is a very strong word, very strong experience. We don't envy anyone that feels that way because it's deeply emotional, not necessarily always rational. It doesn't mean it's irrational, but it's a feeling of really being all alone, no one there for you. Now, let's not talk about people who are perceived that way when it's not really accurate. Even that needs to be addressed. But there are real abandonment experiences in life. You have children whose parents abandoned them at a young age, either physically abandoned them or emotionally, psychologically. So let's talk a moment about the very experience itself. Why is it so devastating? Because for us, connection and attachment, for us human beings, is as vital as oxygen itself. It's not an accident that 9 months we spend in our mother's womb completely attached, completely connected, completely submerged in the embryonic fluids, nurtured, protected, insulated, immunized from the world around. And regardless of the psychological state of your mother, one thing is clear. Except if a pregnant woman is doing some things that are very destructive even to her fetus, but one thing is clear, that there's a certain amount of validation, reinforcement that happens during those months that will empower the child throughout its life. Unfortunately, however, it's not enough. Because as once the umbilical cord is cut and the child is born and emerges, it still needs that reassurance. It still needs that nurturing. That's why you find children whose parents are ripped away from them at a very young age, you find there are always going to be consequences. Adopted children, because something happens, something is severed. So the concept of being connected to someone, knowing that someone cares about you, someone's there for you unconditionally, as I said, is as critical as oxygen itself. The fact that some people have learned to compensate or ignore it and develop, we'll call it different defense mechanisms and armor, doesn't necessarily mean we've coped. It just meant we have managed to build an alternative that may not even be healthy. But everyone will have trust issues when there's abandonment issues. So it's important to understand it's not just being a tough guy or a tough woman and saying, hey, I'm a self-contained person, can take care of myself, I don't need anyone. It's not true. We do need each other. We need each other as children and even as adults. So abandonment is a very serious issue. And that's why it's important to talk about on all levels. But my point here is not to make the case that once a person has been abandoned in some way, that's it, their life is over. No, the exact opposite is true. Awareness of a problem is half the cure. To make believe that I'm a tough guy, a macho, where it doesn't matter, I don't need anyone, is usually the response of a child that's been hurt and builds up these type of lines, defensive mechanisms, as I mentioned, and other layers to protect themselves. And that's why you'll find that they don't want to be vulnerable, and will always say, I don't need anybody, nobody can hurt me. But that's all not correct and not true. So rather is to acknowledge your vulnerability and acknowledge, yes, I do feel abandoned, I do feel alone, and then you can begin to do something about it. Now, this does not mean that we are completely dependent on someone else, but it does mean that we have the need for relationships. And there's nothing wrong with that. On the contrary, that makes you a far stronger person. Actually, true love is the celebration of vulnerability. I don't know if you ever thought of it that way. It's a celebration of being vulnerable with someone and knowing, because of trust and other things, that you won't be hurt. That's much better than not feeling that feeling that you don't want to be vulnerable, you don't want to be hurt, and just creating all these thick layers of armor that don't let anybody in, but also don't let anyone out. So once we've laid the ground for that concept of connection and attachment, let's talk about the things that it provides and what you can do to, on a healthy level, compensate when there is that fear or there's that feeling of feeling abandoned. So what it does is, I mentioned oxygen, what it does is it makes you feel, let's go back to those words, validation. It builds self-esteem and confidence. You know that somebody cares about you. You know you're precious enough to be cared about. How often have I heard from someone, nobody loves me because I don't deserve love. Nobody loves me because I'm worthless, because I'm damaged goods. Who wants to care about a person like me? In other words, it erodes your very sense of self. That's what it comes down to. So in a way, it's much worse than being deprived of oxygen. It erodes your lack of sense of self, of self-esteem. Healthy love and nurturing validates. When a child comes home from school, and every time their parent asks them a question, the parent starts criticizing the child, judging them, belittling them, demoralizing them, that is, every time, it's a small death. You're taking away from the spirit of your child, that young, energetic, all enthusiastic, free, abandoned spirit, and you're crushing it. It's like stepping on someone's head, making you feel like worthless. And I'm using extremes because it's not always that extreme, but even subtly, that's what it does. On the other hand, you're excited about what your child's excited about. And you encourage and say, wow, that's great. Great idea. Even if it's a childish thing, what you're doing is you're feeding and nurturing, like watering a flower. That's what you're doing. And allowing the flower then to blossom. So that's what connection, the opposite of abandonment is. Abandonment makes the person feel, it wasn't worth it. Why do you think children blame themselves for the divorce of their parents? Doesn't make any sense. Why would you blame yourself? My parents don't get along. They got divorced. Why am I at fault as the child? Because for a child, it's inconceivable. Parents are supposed to be heroes. The only reason they went apart is because I did something. I must have caused it. In other words, it's always reflective on the person, on the child, who's so dependent on the parents and doesn't see the parents as imperfect. So all that tells you that it's about development of self. Abandonment is essentially, I wasn't worth it. I wasn't worthy of being loved. I wasn't worthy of being cared for. And even if it's not true, it affects us. In other words, even if the parent didn't mean that, and that was not their intention, whatever the thing is, the bottom line, the result is I wasn't worthy. You weren't ready to pay the price for me. So you can imagine what kind of consequence that leads to. You get older, you start trying to build a relationship, and then you're testing the other person. Do they care enough about me? And you test them sometimes to ad nauseum because you're not sure. You want to make sure, and you always have that doubt. I know I'll be abandoned. At the end of the day, if I open up, I will be hurt. I will be abandoned. I'll be deserted. I'll be some way violated in that sense. So with that in mind, let's now talk about, okay, what do you do if you were indeed abandoned? The answer is you need to find the alternative for self-value. So this brings us to feeling abandoned, but some people say, I feel abandoned by God. Why was God not there for me? I was hurt by close loved ones. I was hurt by the world around me. Why was God not there to protect me? Now, God is a discussion of its own, so whether you embrace some form of God in your life is another issue. But the idea that there is something out there that considers you valuable, I like to put it this way: birth is God saying you matter. Birth is God saying you matter. Some cosmic force greater than ourselves put you here, not by accident, not as an afterthought. You were chosen to be here. Parents validate that. They can nurture that. But remember, parents did not create you. They did certain acts biologically and emotionally that manifest and allowed a life to be conceived. But at the end of the day, there's something more to you than just your body. It's your soul. And your soul is your true source of value. So the answer really is this. The antidote to loneliness, to despair, to abandonment is connecting with your soul. Now, of course, it would be a lot easier if you grew up in a home that was validated, family, school, friends. But we live in a world that is in a constant assault against your psyche. Every advertisement, every marketing campaign, even if they're selling you a good product, they're basically telling you that if you don't get this product, you're not as important, you're not as valuable, you're not as precious. If you travel here, you smoke this, you drive that, you dress this way, then you're going to feel like a complete person. So in a sense, they're telling you you're not complete without it. It creates a sense of deprivation and a sense of lack of complete value because I don't have this, I don't have that. Statistically, they say, I believe it's in Holland, the Netherlands, where there's the highest rate of happiness. People are simply happy per capita. And a lot of people wonder why. I heard a theory a while back. I was at a seminar. I participated in Lima, Peru. So there was a psychologist, and myself, we were both on a co-panelists. And he pointed out that he did research. And, some people say perhaps because it's a socialist country, there everyone has free health care, and there's many other benefits. Some people are happier. He discovered in his research that there are no public advertising in Holland. There's no public advertising. There are no billboards. In the Western world, by the time you're age 20, this is years ago, now it's probably even more, by the age 20 you've seen or heard at least 1 million advertisements. I would say it's a lot more today with internet than with social media. What is an advertisement ultimately? You can't buy those million products, even if you see the same one many times. So it tells you about things that they're telling you should aspire for, but you can't have. It has to create a feeling of inadequacy, of deprivation, of missing something. In Holland, they don't have that issue. They're not exposed. They're not being inundated and streamed all these products, at least in public forums. I don't know if he's correct or not, but it was a very fascinating theory. So in other words, we are constantly being assaulted by saying you're not complete until you do this, unless you watch this, or you attend that, or you hang out with this group, or you look like this. But the truth is your very birth, your very existence gives you indispensable value. That's the key to everything. Now, if your parents gave it to you, great. If not, that does not mean all is lost. It means you need to dig deeper and find that soul within you, that indispensable, beautiful person who you really are. The unique song that only you can sing, which makes you indispensable, which makes you absolutely valuable. Then you feel less abandoned. So in other words, abandonment is a result of lacking that validation, so you're looking for someone to give it to you. And in fact, you have to find it within yourself ultimately. I'd go a step further. Even in the healthiest, nurturing, functional homes and environments, it's, again, your parents don't create the flower, they water it. Your friends, school, society, at best they can help nurture it. But what are they nurturing that? As you grow older, you come to discover who you are, your voice, your song, your flower. And that's where the key is to everything in life. So when we're smacked in the face, we're thrown a curveball in life, and we feel all alone, nobody's there for me. I feel abandoned. I feel abandoned by my friends, I feel abandoned by family, I feel abandoned by God. What you're really saying is, I don't have value of my own, and I need it from them. Now, you deserve it from people, and no question about it, but I'm suggesting that even if there's no one there, there's still that soul that can feed you. So you need to feed your soul so it can feed you back. And that's by simply acknowledging on a daily basis, every morning when you wake up, thank you. Thank you for giving me a soul. Thank you for giving me life. Who are you thanking? A higher power. Want to call it God, want to call it nature, the cosmos, a higher reality, an undefined, indeterministic, non-existential reality. Whatever the word whatever title you give it. But you're acknowledging it, and you're acknowledging your absolute value. And that can never be taken from you. So we can also abandon ourselves when we lose confidence in ourselves. We can betray ourselves. You want to be like somebody else. You want to be like that. And if you're not like that, you feel a lack. You feel deprived. Well, all that goes back to the basic essence of everything comes from within you. Living from the inside out instead of from the outside in. And that's the real antidote. Is it easy? No, it's not, because as I mentioned at the outset, this is emotional. This isn't just an intellectual exercise. Am I abandoned, not abandoned? You look on. It's feeling. It's a feeling. So it's about cultivating that feeling within you, which means you need people around you that validate you. You come up with an idea instead of someone throwing cold water at it and saying, don't be that idealistic. Lower your expectations. I've been there. Cut it out. Someone says, that's a great idea. Tell me how I could help you. Encourage, getting that encouraging voice. At the end of the day, a good coach, whether it's a tennis coach, whether it's a sports coach, whether it's a music coach, whether it's a business coach, whether it's a life coach, a good coach, what do? They constantly feed you that type of confidence. And they'll kick you in the pants at times. You can do better than that. The opposite. They won't kick you in the pants and saying, don't try that hard. Who do you think you are? No, you can do better. They'll push you. So we need to introduce people like that into our lives. People who are around us that believe in us. And if it's not the people that's on your Rolodex now, add new people. I'm not going to tell you to discard any of your friends or your so-called friends. But anyone that's in the category of misery loves company, meaning they want you to be as miserable as they are, is not going to help build your confidence. You need people who believe in you, who encourage you, the enthusiasm. Keep that youthful vigor going. And you need to get involved in activities, even if you don't always successful, but you're driven. Find something you love. It can be learning a new skill. It can be taking music lessons. It can be jogging or other physical exercise. Something that you feel good about when you do. Because confidence breeds confidence. And all these are the forces that counter that feeling, I feel abandoned. And the last thing you want, when people feel abandoned, what happens is they usually lock themselves further into their own little solitary place, in their own basements, and don't want to go out. The opposite. If you're feeling like that way, force yourself. When I say force yourself, obviously with measure, but force yourself to go and do something. Because the last thing what happens is abandonment breeds abandonment, just like confidence breeds confidence. You don't want to create that rut that you keep falling into. So abandonment is a real issue in life. Many of us don't like to acknowledge it because it feels weak. It feels a failure. You feel like a failure. You feel like, hey, why am I dependent on others? You don't want to be dependent. That's not the goal here. The goal is not dependence. The goal is to recognize that we need connection. And the fact of the matter is, when people feel bad about themselves, a lot of people don't want to be around you if you feel bad, because they want to be around someone that's feeling good. I'm not judging them, and I'm not saying they're right. So it's about also creating an environment of that positivity that draws and draws magnetically attracts positivity around you as well. So do you feel abandoned? Yeah, I hear this often. People say, I feel that I'm alone. I feel that no one cares. And most importantly, I feel God doesn't care. But you need to know the God within you is your soul. The mere fact that you have a soul, it means that there's care. That's the bottom line. It doesn't have to come in the shape that God sends you a letter and say, I care about you. He gives you life. The mere fact that you have life, the mere fact that you exist, the mere fact that you have skills, that you have strengths, the mere fact that you have all the blessings that you have, that's a vote of confidence in you. Now, I would love to be able to say that our parents and our communities and our environments and our schools validate that and have nurtured that and have confirm and continue to help cultivate that sense of self. That would be beautiful, but it doesn't always happen. That's why you need to turn again from within. You'll see the people that really develop self-confidence, it's not loud. They just have a certain exude. They exude a certain sense of calm, a certain sense of, I can do it. It comes with humility as well. So all these factors come together to create an individual, which is you, the unique, indispensable you. That which you can contribute to this world, the mark you can make, that you and only you can make. So in the words of Oliver Wendell Holmes in his famous The Voiceless, this tragic poem where he begins, alas to those that die with their song still inside them. You have a song inside you. Don't die with it remaining silent. Learn to sing your song. Find people that can help you encourage to sing your song. You have something to give, something unique to contribute. And when you do that, it helps build that sense of self. And that's how you don't abandon yourself. Don't abandon your music. Don't abandon your soul. Don't abandon your destiny. And hopefully we can find the friends, even the few, that can help support that we can lean on in times when there is need for that, and help build. And we too can be the ones that they lean on in times when our friends need that support. May you be blessed with that type of sense of purpose, sense of urgency, sense of value, and may we be blessed with all the people around us that will really help support that. And please see me, whether you know me or not personally. I hope I tried to convey some of myself in my message here. And please know that you could turn to me, and I hope I can turn to you. And let's create a family, a brotherhood, a sisterhood of us that validate each other, that help us celebrate our vulnerability. Ultimately, love, the love that comes with connection and attachment. Simon Jacobson here, always an honor to share a few words. Please check it out, check me out, check out our work at meaningfullife.com, where you can find this and many, many other programs. Please subscribe to our growing YouTube channel, share with others, and I'd love to hear your feedback, thoughts, comments, suggestions, and especially about this topic. It's a special topic. I'd love to hear what you have to say about it. Whether it's painful or joyous, it's always valuable. And so please share. Thank you again. Be blessed and be well.